I was still in my scrubs, 12 hours on my feet, patients to care for, crises to manage, emotions to hold together, and all I wanted, all I asked for, was to pull into my own driveway. But there it was, a giant white SUV, parked dead center, not even slightly to the side, just there, like I didn't exist. And when I called my neighbor to say something, he laughed it off, told me to park on the street, said it wasn't a big deal. So I decided, you know what? He was right. It wasn't a big deal. Cue the tow truck. If you've ever been pushed around by someone who kept smiling while they disrespected you, someone who made you feel like the difficult one just for having basic standards, then you are going to love this story. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and settle in. Because this one is deeply, completely, chef's kiss satisfying. Let's get into it. Picture a quiet little cul-de-sac. Nothing dramatic about it, no HOA drama, no neighborhood feuds, no nosy committees. Just a tight loop of houses, a handful of families, and the kind of place where you mostly mind your own business. Our narrator, let's call her Sarah, had lived there long enough to know her neighbors by name, wave hello in the mornings, and expect the same basic courtesies in return. Her driveway was simple. 2 spots. One for her car, one for her husband's. Not a parking garage, not a courtesy lot, her property. And then there was Jack. Jack lived next door. On the surface, he seemed harmless enough, the kind of guy who'd give you a friendly nod, maybe joke about the weather. But underneath that easygoing smile was something a lot of us have encountered at least once in our lives. A person who interprets your kindness as permission, your patience as a blank check, your silence as an open invitation. The first time it happened, Sarah gave Jack every benefit of the doubt in the world. His brother's car was in her driveway one afternoon. Jack came out, all casual smiles, said it'd be just a sec. Sarah thought, okay, fine. Accidents happen. People make mistakes. She let it go. But just a sec turned into a week. And then it happened again. A friend dropping something off. Another apologetic half-shrug from Jack. Another vague promise that they'd be gone soon. Sarah still let it slide. She's a nurse. She spends her entire professional life choosing her battles, de-escalating, keeping the peace. She brought that same grace home with her. That was her first mistake, not because Grace is wrong, but because Jack didn't see Grace. He saw a loophole. Because it kept happening. Week after week, car after car. Random vehicles she'd never seen before, sitting in her driveway like they owned the place. Sometimes she'd come home to find herself completely blocked, and I want you to really picture what that means. You've just worked a 12-hour shift. You are physically and emotionally spent in a way that most jobs simply don't demand. You've been on your feet since before sunrise. You've held it together through emergencies, through grief, through the relentless pressure of keeping other human beings alive. And now, all you want is to park your car, walk into your house, and exhale. But you can't, because Jack's friend needed somewhere to park. One particular evening stands out. Sarah came home, groceries packed into 5 heavy bags in the back seat, and found the driveway blocked again. She had to park halfway down the street. Then she carried all 5 bags, by herself, through the dark, because there was nowhere else to put the car. 5 bags, after a full shift, because her neighbor had decided her driveway was his personal overflow parking. Every time she brought it up, Jack had the same response. That lazy, unbothered half-smile. Oh yeah, sorry, they'll be gone soon. Like her frustration was an overreaction. Like she was the one creating a problem by simply wanting access to her own property. And that dismissal is somehow worse than the inconvenience itself, isn't it? Because it wasn't just about the driveway anymore. It was about being seen, being respected, Having someone look you in the eye and acknowledge that your time, your exhaustion, your needs, they matter. Jack never gave her that. And so she kept absorbing it, telling herself it wasn't worth the conflict, telling herself maybe next time she'd be firmer, telling herself that surely he'd figure it out on his own. He did not figure it out on his own. Then came the Friday that changed everything. Late Friday night. End of another 12-hour shift. Sarah's still in her scrubs. That particular kind of tired where your bones feel hollow. She's got takeout in the passenger seat, still warm but fading fast, and she's running purely on the promise of her couch and a hot meal. She turns onto her street. And there it is. A giant white SUV parked dead center in her driveway, not squeezed to one side, not partially in the street, absolutely, deliberately, magnificently blocking every inch of her property like it had been placed there by someone who had genuinely never considered that she might need to, I don't know, come home. She sat in the car for a moment, just stared at it, felt that specific, slow-burning feeling rise up from somewhere deep in her chest. Not quite anger yet, but the thing that lives right below it. She knocked on the door of the SUV. Nothing. She called Jack. He picked up, and his tone was the thing that finally snapped the last thread. Casual, completely unbothered, like she'd called to chat. "Oh yeah, that's my in-laws. They'll only be there a couple hours. Just park on the street. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. Sarah hung up, sat very still for about 10 seconds. And then she got her phone back out, not to call Jack again, but to call someone else entirely. Here's what most people don't realize, but Sarah did, because she'd looked it up months ago in the back of her mind, almost like she knew this moment was coming. In her city, if a vehicle is blocking access to your private driveway, you have the legal right to have it towed. Immediately. No warning required. No grace period. No, just give them a few hours. The tow truck arrived in 20 minutes. Sarah sat in her car with her takeout, ate her fries while she watched, and felt something she hadn't felt in months settle quietly over her. Calm. The SUV was gone before she finished eating. About an hour later, the pounding started. Not knocking. Pounding. The kind that rattles the frame. Sarah opened the door. There was Jack. Face flushed red, chest heaving, the kind of angry that tells you someone has been marinating in outrage for the past 60 minutes. Behind him, his in-laws, voices raised, arms out, the full theatrical production of people who believed they had been wronged. Jack went off. How she'd gone too far. How she could have just waited. How it was only going to be a couple hours. How she didn't have to do all that. Sarah let him finish. And then, very quietly, very calmly, the way you speak to someone when you are the only person in the conversation who is not panicking, she said, "You told me it wasn't a big deal." Beat. So I treated it like it wasn't a big deal. Then she closed the door. No yelling, no dramatic speech, no lengthy explanation. Just 8 words and a closed door. The in-laws had to pay just under $300 to get their car out of impound. And from that night forward, not eventually, not after a couple more attempts, immediately, permanently, that very night, Jack's family, Jack's friends, Jack's in-laws, and every other person in his extended social orbit stopped parking in Sarah's driveway. Not even for a sec. You know what this story is really about? It's not about tow trucks or impound fees. It's about the moment someone stops apologizing for having standards. There are people in this world who will keep taking, not because they're evil, but because nobody ever showed them there was a cost. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and for them, is let them find out. Jack learned that day, and honestly, it only cost him $300. That's a bargain. If this story made you want to stand up and applaud a tired nurse in her scrubs, same. Smash that like button. It genuinely helps more than you know. And drop a comment below. Have you ever been pushed to your limit by someone who kept calling your frustration not a big deal? What did you do? I want to hear every single detail. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? New stories like this go up all the time. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.